So in today's video, I'm going to be discussing with you the true cost of renovating. We're not just talking dollars, we're talking about everything. Your time, your family, your relationships. There's a lot of information to cover, and one of the things you need to know is we're not just going to come at it from a perspective of someone trying to sell you a course to become a house flipper. I'm a general contractor for the last 30 years, and what I'm going to share with you today is insider industry knowledge. It's the truth. No holding back, right? In my channel, I'm going to be more of a consumer advocate in this situation, and I'm going to share with you all the dirty, all the truth, and all the hype that goes around this idea of renovating. Because renovating or remodeling or decorating or flipping, these are all completely different concepts, and those terms are used interchangeably, but that's just not fair to you, the consumer who owns a house, and you're getting lost in the shuffle as to what's best for you. So listen, we're going to take on a lot of information today. We're going to share a lot of valuable tips and tricks, places and ways that you can shop to save money, different places in the country that it makes sense to renovate, and different situations where it might make sense to renovate for you, but are you really ready to take that on? And are you able to do that as a DIYer? There's a lot to cover, so let's get started. By the end of this video, we're going to be able to give you the information so that you can answer the question, should you renovate your house? And we're also going to give you the actual cost of this renovation project, and I'm going to tell you the truth of whether or not I think it was a good idea. So first, let's talk about why we need to renovate, because there's a difference between needing to renovate and the desire to want to renovate, which would be like changing your living space to an open concept. The need to renovate hinges on a few key ingredients. One of them is, how old is your home? Because construction technology, although it's changed a lot since 1980, the basics of it, the structure, how the structure is done, hasn't really changed very much. Now, there are more options in different building construction styles, but if you own a house, you're not concerned with whether or not a new modern building is in your future, because if you want it, you have to move or you got to bulldoze your property. Renovating an old house is anything before 1980 is basically an evolution of construction technology. And so you want to go backwards in time through that evolution to decide, is it worth it for me to open everything up, to change a piece of that construction technology that isn't up to speed, and by doing so, giving you a clean slate to build again? And is there any benefit in it, really? So let's talk about that. Before 1980, we didn't have very good insulation in the homes. A lot of homes were built with 2x4, very thin walls. If you're in a northern climate at all, it was insufficient. They didn't have good vapor barrier technology. There was still a lack of understanding on air passing through buildings. We're still just today starting to get that up to speed. But if you can make your building so that you don't have air passing, then you don't have heat passing, and it's a much better environment. Now, that relates to energy cost of a home and may or may not really influence your decision to renovate, just because if it costs you $1,000 a year more to heat your house in the winter, is it really worth it to gut it and start over again to save that money? Probably not. But if your house is made in the early 70s, then you've also got the issue of aluminum wiring in a lot of homes back in those days. And that can be a fire hazard. So now we have this evolution of the need to want to renovate. So fire hazards are a good reason to renovate. We go back in time, during the 40s, 50s, and 60s, the whole construction world was in this race to develop a good technology. So there's a ton of different building materials and ideas used back then, and they kind of all conglomerated around a national building code. Late 60s, early 70s, it all came together. But for about 30 or 40 years there, it was just a wild west of building ideas. Everybody was an inventor, and everybody was trying something different, and not everything worked together well. So you're going to have crazy roof lines with massive heat loss and ice damming and water infiltration and mold. You're going to have old-fashioned steel plumbing pipes on your waste vent and your drains. They're going to be all clogged up and rusting out and causing leaks and issues. The older you get, the more brittle they are, and they can be really dangerous to having sudden major problems and floods in your house. You go back even further than that, you're getting away from the modern kind of framing of a house where you're going into stick framing like this old beast. And this is what we call balloon framing. This is an 1880 house. So when you look at this, you think, well, my house is from 1900, 1880, 1860. What am I going to get into there? Well, in this kind of situation, it's kind of like the difference between the exoskeleton of a lobster and the skeleton that we have, where it's all surrounded by muscle. The new construction today, they build the frame and you put a roof on it. With nothing else in the house, it can handle the load of a winter and everything else. This kind of house here, they put these boards up, and all of the wood on the outside of this house is what gives it its strength. It's not just lateral, but it's actual strength, because every time a board ends, they just scab a new one on and keep going, okay? And those two nails are not transferring the load of the roof. The roof load is being transferred by every one of these boards throughout the entire house. And so that kind of technology requires a different kind of understanding. You can't just like this, like for instance, this used to be a window, right down to here. Somebody just framed it all up, closed it up. They didn't do a good job, it wasn't weathered, and look at all this water damage and advanced rot going on. This is the kind of problems you can run into. So, the older the house gets, the more issues you got to deal with. For instance, if you're going with anything in before 1970, you've got to address your asbestos issue. Now, if you're living in a house and you're not going to renovate every year and flip, I don't want you to be too concerned. Most experts would agree on this very simple principle. Asbestos isn't that dangerous if it's not, a lot of exposure over a sustained period of time. So just buy yourself a mask, take some precaution, put a fan in a window, get your demolition done, clean it all out of there, and even if you get a little bit in your system, it's not going to cause you any long-term health effect. It might cause you a little short-term discomfort, but get the mask and you'll be fine. I don't want everybody freaking out. Unless you're going to be renovating houses and doing demolition every day of your life, it's not a concern for you, okay? Before that, we also had to deal with lead. Now, everyone talks about all the toxicity in old homes. Reality is, again, it's only a problem if you're going to have that window trim for dinner. If you're not eating the lead, it's not dangerous, but it's something to consider. The older the home, the more hazards you're going to find, and it's going to have that old ancient dust smell of the coal. That's going to be in there too. So air quality is an issue. That's why I believe in using a really good air filtration system upstairs. One of the things that I like to preach is if you're going to renovate your house, you should live in it. There's an added expense that you can avoid. These are all things you need to consider when it comes to the cost of the project, and we're going to show you how to do them. So let's talk about the process for doing the renovation. Now, you have some major processes here. You've got to do your demolition, right? Then you have to inspect and repair structure if you have any of those issues. Then you want to take a look at changing your mechanical if they need to be upgraded, because if you're renovating, which means you're ripping open all the walls, basically the definition of renovation is I'm opening up my walls so that I can upgrade my mechanical systems and my structural. If you're not going to go through that process, then don't open up your walls. Remodel your house. And that is just the act of removing all of the finishings and putting all new flooring and finishings and furniture, things like appliances and kitchen cabinets and tile and paint job, lighting, that's a remodel. But if you're going to renovate, it means you're changing your mechanical systems. So while you have your walls open, it's a perfect time to go all in, all right? If you're going to do it all. Upgrade your water, upgrade your hot water tank, your water purification, your panel. All right? One of the things you want to take a look at is a lot of older homes have a 100-amp service. There's a lot of restriction on your capability in the future to do remodeling and adding on to your house if you only have a 100-amp service. Like in my area, I want to add a hot tub, but I can't do it unless I upgrade my panel to a 200-amp service. That's just against the rules. I didn't really know that until I was talking to my electrician recently. So we're going to upgrade the whole panel as well. We'll get into all these costs in a minute. But aside from the cost of those new systems, let's take a look at ways that you can save your money. You can do all the demolition on your own. This here is basically 3 days of work. We took out everything, right back to the original studs. And you can see this house here on the walls and the ceiling, they've just added the lath and then put the plaster coat over top. There's no strapping, no secondary structure. This house is a bit of a trampoline. So, I mean, it's only 2x8. They're 20-foot clear span across the whole building. And yeah, they have this structure across the middle to hold it all together, but that's really not enough lumber. It's not up to code today. So as long as I don't change it out, I'm fine. But I am going to add some nice thick strapping on there, and that's going to help make it a lot more solid and get rid of that bounce. When you do your own demolition, what you're going to do is two things. A, you're going to save a ton of money because your labor is free. And labor is the most expensive part of any renovation project because what comes along with labor is taxes. That's the bottom line. Most houses you can renovate, your material cost is about 25%. The rest of it is labor and taxes. So whenever you get a chance to do work yourself, you're not just saving on the labor, you're saving on the taxes that are all built into the whole economic system of hiring a contractor. Remember, for every dollar you give a contractor, 60 cents of that goes to the government in Canada and about 50 cents in the United States. Now, doing your own demolition also gives you this added benefit. You can take your time, be a little bit more patient, and pay attention to the nuances of your house. In my experience as a contractor the last 30 years, most of the major costs that have come into a project were associated with doing the demolition because the crews would move too fast through the process. They made a huge mess. They weren't aware of what was going on around them, and they ended up removing something that was delicate and important that didn't make a lot of sense at the time, but because of prior renovations, you know, something may have been done wrong in a house and you took a 2x4 out like this and you just knocked it out because, well, we're going to put a wall in here and it's not supporting wall, but somebody made a modification upstairs that you weren't aware of. It became a supporting wall. Little things like this that you need to be able to pay attention to. Skin everything back. Understand your structure, okay? Don't be afraid to take it one step at a time. Save your money. If you have to pull out your saws and start cutting through floors and walls, really ask yourself a question, what's going on here? It's not like on TV where they just take a sledgehammer and start bashing things apart. You want to peel it back like an onion, okay? Every layer. Take off the plaster, take off the lath, clean off the extra flooring, get back to the original structure, and then evaluate what's holding up what. Very good question to ask. Now, if you need to learn about structure, we have videos on that. And if you need to learn about how to do demolition, we got videos on that. We do specialize on this channel in helping you DIY all aspects of your renovation. But in this chat, we're going to focus mostly on the overall cost and how you can reduce your cost so that you can afford to do this properly. Now, let's get on to the next step. Yeah, so the next step in your renovation process is to establish a proper thermal and vapor barrier. This is a little bit more tricky with the older houses because they weren't designed for it. Don't forget, in the old days, they used to just put on a furnace, throw the coal in there, crank it up, melt everything within 10 feet, but it pushed so much heat through the house. There was no such thing as condensation in the walls because the heat was blowing right through the outside of the building. Nowadays, we're working with energy efficient furnaces and we're working with more of a comfortable room temperature kind of heating system is forced air. So now we have all of this cold air that's creeping into the building, and the freezing point is somewhere between outside and the inside of the insulation, somewhere in the middle. But if you have places in your thermal and your air barrier that are broken, then that cold draft is going to come through. You're going to get condensation, and you're going to get wood that's getting soft, like this. Now it shouldn't be just denting like that and chipping off. This is because there was no plastic vapor barrier around this area at all. The insulation that was in here was just stuffed in, like just the whole cavity was filled with insulation. And what it ended up doing was just creating this nesting area for the mice, okay? And so they've come along and they've done whatever they wanted to do. They live quite comfortably in this old house. So what we're doing is we're cleaning it all back. We're going to insulate the outside house to this point with a new vapor barrier, and then we're going to put mineral wool all across this cavity here, tie the vapor barrier from the basement up and around, and tape it all together. Whew. It's going to be a lot of work, but by getting a good proper seal, it's going to make sure that this stays dry, and it's going to get another 100 years out of it. The next thing we're going to do, remove this, put on a new 2x10, because one of the ways you can save a lot of money in a situation like this is leave the trees. Don't be afraid to work with what you have and then add on to it to bring in good building practice. We can add a 2x10 across the whole bottom of this wall. In the future, if we need to, we can put in some floor joist hangers and we can run new floor joists underneath. One of the things you want to do when you're renovating an old house like this is try to simplify all the mechanical so that you get all of the plumbing and electrical away from the outside walls, okay? Try to get it into the interior walls across the ceilings. Make it possible to get down and dirty in here, because the places where nobody really wants to look are the places you're going to have problems, and that's going to be where you run into major issues. Remember, this whole house is kind of slid off the foundation just a little bit. So what we want to do is make sure that we can tie it all together and keep that from happening anymore. One consideration that can save you a ton of money when you're renovating is A, keep your electrical away from the basement floor ceiling area, run it up through an interior wall. Secondly is move your plumbing. I know everyone likes to have a sink on the outside wall near a window, but putting plumbing on the outside window in this kind of environment almost always ends up in resulting in a compromise in your thermal and air barrier. Try to put it in an island or somewhere else in the house. Keep everything mechanical within 2 feet and get it away from that foundation wall so that you've got the ability to maintain that over time. So we've gone through a bit of the process. We've got demolition, we got electrical, we got plumbing. After that, it gets pretty simple. You're more into remodeling. We're going to do drywall work, flooring. It comes down to selections. Where you spend your money comes down to selections. So let's talk about the money now. What does it actually cost to do this kind of renovation? First of all, the demolition. What we do generally is we get these large roll-off container bins. They're called 30-yard. They're really big and they'll take all kinds of crap, and we can get 8 tons of garbage in them. And so generally speaking, you can go through 2, maybe 3 on an old house because you have so many layers of remodeling over all the old layers in them. So we're looking at about $600 a bin for cost for pickup, removal, and dump fees. So that ends up to be $1,800. Let's call $2,000 for demolition because the labor's free, right? Buy some pizza and a case of beer, have a couple friends over, and swing away and have some fun. So the demolition's done. We got it all cleaned up and vacuumed out. Now what we have to do is introduce new electrical system, new plumbing system, new insulation. You start thinking, wow, here comes a lot of money. But the truth is this, if you can wire your own house, then the cost of doing all of the wiring work here really comes down to just about $300. That'll buy you boxes and wire to wire a kitchen and a living space next to it. That's not expensive. The money that comes into wiring a house that gets expensive is hiring the electrician, because like I said, now you're hiring a licensed trade and you're paying a lot of taxes through his business operation to the government. I'm having an electrician come in and change out my panel. That's an extra cost. We're upgrading the service to 200 amp. His quote on that is going to be close to $5,000. And I'm okay with that because once I have my panel upgraded, that means I have the option down the road to add a working shop, to put an expansive outdoor living space and a hot tub, all these things I can't do with the confines of a 100 amp service. So it's a bit of an expense now, but it's going to pay off huge dividends when it comes time for resale and all of this work is done. The other thing we're going to have is all the plumbing work that gets done. Now, generally speaking, a kitchen is not a lot of plumbing work. A bathroom is a lot more expensive with the plumbing than a kitchen is. All you're doing is putting in a sink and running a dishwasher. And those are 2 basic programs that I'm going to be able to show you in upcoming videos on how to accomplish installing those. So we'll just itemize this. Demolition, $2,000, maybe $3,000 on the high side. Electrical, if you're upgrading your panel and you're wiring your own house, which you can do in a lot of places, you just have to pull a permit, $5,000. If you need to hire an electrician to do all of the labor, another $5,000, okay? And that's just for the main floor. If you're doing the whole house, don't be surprised if it's going to cost you $10,000. Plumbing, if you're not doing the bathrooms, you're just doing the kitchen and you need a plumber instead of yourself, then you're probably looking at about $800 to $1,000 just because he isn't going to come out and set a day aside to do your job without making sure he's covering all of his expenses, all your government taxes, the cost to put a truck on the road, all these things come into play. And the materials to actually do the work, to run the fittings, is going to be like about $50. I would suggest watch a plumbing video and do it yourself. Just saying. Other than that, those 2 major mechanical. Now the HVAC system is the only thing we haven't covered yet. And the reason for that is, in most cases, the ductwork in the house is going to be sufficient. A real modern HVAC system is really technologically advanced from even something from the year 2000. They've really come a long way with their science and their math and moving cold air around and heat returns. But if you have an old system where you're forcing air in every room and your stairwells are the cold air return and maybe you got a great big heat grate and a great big grate in the floor where the cold air is going back to the furnace, you're going to be mid-efficiency. Investing in upgrading that whole system may not be a very good idea, but you might want to upgrade the actual furnace unit itself and leave all your ductwork alone, and that'll save you an absolute fortune. So putting in a brand new furnace runs about $2,000 to $3,000. Just saying. You can't really get away from that. These are gas technicians and they have a license and a ticket, and you can't get that work done yourself. So you're going to get stuck with it. one of those things. If you try to sell your home and you have a brand new furnace and you have a brand new electrical panel that's been upgraded, and you have new plumbing systems and all new, new, you're going to get a return on your value there if you can do as much of the work as possible. So just to recap, we got 5 for electrical, maybe 10. We've got $1,000 for plumbing. We've got a few thousand for heat, and we've got a few thousand for doing all the demolition. So we're still around $10,000, $11,000 for a major renovation project. So now we got to get into the cost of all of the finishing. Okay, so the cost of finishing is where it gets really crazy, because this is where you make all your decisions related to your fixtures and your finishings. This is where you spend money, right? It's also the greatest place on earth to save your money and do it yourself, because if you can develop these skills that are necessary to get a good result, which we'll teach you in all of our videos, then you can save an absolute fortune. Let me break it down for you. Once your structure's done, all your mechanical's done, it's what we call time to close, okay? Now closing means you're installing all your drywall. Now drywall in and of itself is relatively inexpensive. So you can buy the drywall and all the compound and tools necessary to do the drywall. This is a 400 square foot space, all right, floor space. So just to give you an idea, the drywall to buy this, I haven't even mapped this out yet. 1, 2, 3, 4, 7, 8, we're about 30 sheets of drywall down here, okay? And it's running about $15 a sheet. Boom, so 5, 6, 7. So for less than $1,000, you can buy all the materials and the tools, okay? To do a good drywall finishing job here. Now, if you were to hire a drywall company to come in and do this job, because it's all labor and it takes a few days for them to get it done, I'm telling you right now, you're gonna get quotes in between the $5,000 to $7,000 range. Because it's a one-off, there's no relationship, there's no repeat business, they're going to charge you top dollar to come in here. That is why you want to learn how to do this yourself. It's not that difficult. It's a little artistic and it takes a little time, but if you stick with it and you learn the systems that I'm teaching, then you can do this yourself and you can save $6,000 right there. Now, after that, you got to pick paint, right? Paint can be expensive, believe it or not. You've got to get drywall primer, ceiling paint, finish paint, trim paint. So before you know it, it's going to be $400 or $500 of paint and paint gear in order to finish off this space. Now listen, yes, you can get that cheaper. But if you want to buy a good quality finish, because with your new renovation, you want to have quality built into every step. I always preach this. If you're doing the work yourself, buy the nicest stuff you can for the marketplace that you're in. Getting a good quality washable paint is the difference between a good and a bad job, because it allows you to be able to upgrade. You can see a good quality finish when you look at it. All right, so buy good quality stuff and do it yourself. $500, paint the whole place. Or you can hire a paint crew to come in here. Again, they're gonna send in a couple of guys, they're gonna work here for a couple of days, and they're gonna charge you a few $1,000s. Labor is not cheap. And it's not because guys are crooks, it's because their business model involves so many different layers of hidden and obvious taxes in the system. It's getting out of control. I know in US it's not as bad as it is in Canada, but I'm telling you right now, if you have to hire labor to do what can be considered to be a relatively simple task. I don't want to mean to offend any painters out there, but the reality is a homeowner who's putting forth a lot of effort can do just as good a job as a painter who's in a hurry to make a buck. Just saying. Now, aside from paint and drywall, which we've just saved, I think, about $6,000 on finishing there, you're going to need to buy a kitchen. You can buy a kitchen in all kinds of different price ranges, but you want to get something that has a real aesthetically appeal, that when you go to sell your house, people are going to be like, wow, I'd love to be able to work in that kitchen. There's a lot of different factors involved in this, and this is where we get into the economics of the region you live in, because some places where you're living, it's not going to make sense to try to do something like that out of the magazine, okay? This is not show home stuff. Most people need a functional kitchen, and we need to be practical about this. There's nothing wrong with buying an IKEA kitchen, putting in Formica countertops, because they make some amazing products, okay? It's clean, it's functional, it's healthy, and it's cost effective. So you can put together a kitchen for $3,000, $4,000 that is going to be big and beautiful, and you're going to be able to entertain your friends and family, and you don't have to break the bank, all right? Now, aside from that, you can really dress things up with some good lighting fixtures. Now, I've wired this place here to have all kinds of pot light. We're going to do a bit of a coffered ceiling. We're going to show you all that process, some crown moldings, because they're not expensive, but they sure make a project look nice. We also have to deal with some tile work. You can do that yourself as well. $100 so you can do your own backsplash. Not a big deal. Don't spend time and money wasting interviewing, having contractors coming by. My goodness, it's just not worth the effort. When they want to come do a backsplash, they want to get paid for a full day's work. They're going to be in and out of your house in 3 hours. They're going to charge you $600 to $800. Unreal. Do it yourself, save your money. It's a great skill to learn. Once you do a backsplash, you can have a little bit of confidence. Then you can start taking a look at renovating other places with tile, maybe the kitchen floor, maybe a bathroom. It goes on and on. The last major expense you got to take a look at is your flooring. Now, depending on the house and the place where you live, your renovation, you might be able to keep your flooring. You might have a hardwood floor surface and you're just going to refinish. In that case, I'm going to suggest not doing that yourself. This is where I go contrary to usually what I preach, but hiring a flooring refinishing company is worth the investment because they're not that expensive for what they do. It's a relatively simple process, but it requires a certain skill level, and it is an art form and a lot of heavy machinery that if you use wrong, you're going to cause yourself a world of hurt and wreck your floors. So if you bring in a guy who's a professional in his trade and you give him a couple of dollars a square foot, he'll sand it all down and refinish it and make it look brand new. I know there's a lot of videos on YouTube of people that do it a variety of different ways in their own homes, and the camera lies. Every one of those jobs you see where they've got the belt sander out and they're doing their floor, it looks like junk in real life. Don't be fooled. Hire a pro for this job. And if you need new flooring, like me, because I'm on softwood lumber here, it looks pretty, oh, it's charming, but the truth is it's ugly and you can't keep it clean. I'm covering it with vinyl because this stuff is amazing. It's water resistant, it's flexible, and I can get a really top quality product for less than $3 a square foot. I know, and it's amazing. Most flooring out there, you really have to watch your price point because you can get duped into buying laminate flooring for $6 and $7 a square foot. Who the heck wants to buy laminate flooring for $7 a square foot? But these products are out there. Be careful. You can get real good quality at different price ranges. And we're going to do a video soon about all the different flooring options and what you can buy to save your money and be really happy with the performance. That one's coming up soon. Now, when you're gone through all of that, you've got your structure, all your mechanical, you're closed up, you got all your finishings on. There really isn't much else left to do. So yes, let's talk about the total cost for this renovation. 400 square feet, kitchen and living space, gutted to the bone, right, and rebuilt. I'm doing all of this myself. My whole cost at the end of the day is, I can't tell you yet because we haven't talked about appliances. One of the biggest expenses you're going to have in a renovation is your appliances. No one wants to see your old appliances in a brand new kitchen. So here's my advice. I've got a tip and a trick for everybody out there who has to buy appliances. Tip number one, go to 2 different stores that are both offering the best deals in town and make them bid for your project. Put them to war against each other and they will do it. It's a simple process. You go to one store, you get the price, say I need stainless steel, I'm doing stove, fridge, and dishwasher. What's your best price? You don't have to buy the highest quality thing on the market. Remember, appliances are kind of like windows. They stop making improvements in quality that are really effective and make a big difference. At the end of the day, you want a fridge to keep the cold stuff cold and the frozen stuff frozen. It doesn't have to have all the bells and whistles in it, right? Keep your money down to a minimum. There's no return on investment for a $5,000 fridge versus a $1,000 fridge. It just isn't going to happen in most houses and most markets. So if you're like me and you want clean water or you want ice cubes, you make ice cubes and you get water from the tap. You don't need it in your fridge. Now, a stove is a stove is a stove because you need it to get hot and cook your food. That's it. If it wants to be pretty and you want all the bells and whistles, you can spend as much money as you want. But if you want to be practical, you can get a fridge, stove, and a dishwasher for $1,000. And if you want to do even better than that, get another guy involved and tell him that the other guy said $900, he'll match that price. Put them to war against each other. It's amazing how easy that happens. Now, I live in Ottawa, and all the appliance companies have their retail shops set up in town with expensive stores and expensive rents. So what I did is I drove 20 minutes into the country and I found an appliance store that's in a small town that's almost a ghost town. His rent is dirt cheap and he got me the best price I've ever seen. And you know what? It's not the end of the world. I'm going to go pick it up myself with my pickup truck. And even if he threw in his delivery fee, it was just a great deal. So that's what I did to save my money. You can do the same. Now, with all things involved, all right, all the costs involved, I'm telling you right now, I got an upgraded panel for 200 amp, all new electrical, new plumbing, fixed the structure, brand new thermal break, brand new vapor barrier everywhere, right? Everything's been upgraded, everything's brand new, cabinets, counters, appliances, the whole kit and caboodle. We're in at about $17,500 because I'm doing it all myself. The cost of this renovation, if I hired a contractor, is $50 to $60. Just saying. The benefit of this on my house, I'm going to make money. There's no doubt about it. The question is for you. When it comes to determining the value of your home and if it's a good idea for you to renovate, is this. If I put X number of dollars in, what's my house worth when I get done? What's the real estate market like? What's the job market like? Is it trending up or down? All these are questions you need to ask, because there are some places in this country that if you bought a house and renovated it, you're going to lose money. It's not a guaranteed win. Now, if you renovate and you DIY it, you're probably going to get ahead every single time, but then it's the cost of your time and your relationships and your hobbies and everything else and lifestyle and quality of life. You've got to make that informed decision. But if you're like me, taking 6 months to a year to renovate your house and having a place that's worth a lot more than what you bought it for is a fantastic financial situation to be in, and I just can't wait to get to the other side because, well, I'm doing a YouTube channel. I'm probably going to buy another house and keep on doing it. All right, so we've answered the question about whether or not it's a financial gain to do a renovation. And the answer is, if you're doing it yourself, almost anywhere that you ever grab a hold of an old home and want to renovate, yes, you are going to make some money and you're going to have a financial success. But life isn't all about money. There is one more important factor that you need to factor into whether or not you're going to renovate your home, and that is the stress factor. Whew. It seems to me nowadays that everybody is living right on the edge of stress. And I tell you, this younger generation's got one thing really right. They're really reevaluating the whole reason I do things, why do I do this, the stress factor that's involved, the quality of life issues. I'm loving this concept. It's really helped me to take a step back and reevaluate some of my own decision-making process. There is an amazing amount of stress when you're living in the dirt, when you are displaced from your kitchen for maybe a month, 2, 3, 6, depending on how much DIY you're doing. No, because for me, this is my kitchen. I have a wife. And it's a really big decision as far as doing the DIY, doing videos on a process like that. It drags it out, to be honest with you. I mean, it takes a lot longer to do this for us on camera. And there are a certain amount of stresses in life that you can add on to your life and you can still function and still get out the other side and still be married. But honestly, you need to take that into account for yourself. What happens to you if you got 6 months of living in the dirt, of not having a kitchen, having a barbecue all the time, having to use microwave dinners to survive? How in the world are you going to do it? So about a week ago, we started doing some filming on my process to do a living in a house of a renovation while you're changing your kitchen. We talked about a lot of great things. We're going to share that footage with you now and bring you up to speed. And one of the reasons I wanted to do all this information today is I recently saw something on the internet. You know, somebody had bought some crappy 1970s home and they're going to renovate it, and they're trying to appeal to middle-class America. And it was like, yeah, not really. It was such a huge project, it was a little ridiculous. Most people don't have a budget for that. So I thought, you know, I'm just going to take a step back, bring in some new information for this video, tie all this together so that you guys have got the information and the tools you need to have a realistic understanding of the actual overall cost if you're actively involved. So if you have a budget and you want to have some secrets for a no-stress renovation when you're living at home, watch the rest of this video and enjoy it. So today I'm going to discuss with you the most important secret when it comes to doing a major house renovation that'll keep you on budget and keep you on time. And that keeps everybody happy. Whew, let's get into it. Hey, so welcome to my living room. This is a little crazy because we're doing a whole floor plan readjustment here. We're taking out walls, putting a new structural load. So part of the process was I had to put in this temporary wall here because for some reason this house was built without any load bearing right down the middle of it, so it's all saggy. And while I did that, I figured I'm gonna throw up some shelves, and I created a little storage area here for all my tools and materials that helps to keep me organized. Listen, when you're renovating your house, there are 3 major things that you need, and that is storage, staging area, and scope isolation. I'm gonna break that down real quick for you because storage, you are going to be packing up. It's almost like moving day, especially if you're touching your kitchen. Everything has to be packed up and put somewhere where you have access to it so you can still function to whatever degree you're going to have kitchen facilities available. If you're reducing yourself just to take out and barbecue, that's a no-brainer. But if you're like me, that is a waste of money. I like to set myself up with a temporary kitchenette. If I'm ripping a kitchen out, I like to stick a couple of things somewhere, have a sink, have a countertop, maybe a toaster oven, have the basic luxuries of life, even redirect the stove power and put the stove in the fridge in another room. I like to be able to have the ability to cook my own food. Over the course of 6 or 8 weeks of a major house renovation, if it's on time, you're going to spend thousands of dollars on takeout and needless expenses if you can't cook. Secondly, staging area. Wow, I can't even think about this, but most renovations that go bad are because they don't have enough room. They don't have room to set up. They don't have room for their tools and materials, kitchen cabinets. You want to have that all unpacked and on site before you get busy, okay? Because there are 2 ways to renovate a kitchen. One is you go with a knockdown kitchen that you can buy at IKEA. It's there, it's available, and that's the direction we're heading because our timeline and budget is too tight for us to go fancy. And the second is if you're going upscale and you're buying wooden cabinets, you've got to have that stuff delivered on site, inspected and unpacked, and put somewhere where they're not going to have any damage caused to them. So you got to have enough square footage to unpack your whole kitchen, inspect it, because if you have problems before you put it in, you can fix it. If you wait until you're ready to install your cabinets to find out that a gable end has been smashed by a forklift at the factory, and you can't put that corner cabinet in, you can't install your whole kitchen. And that's the wrong time to find out when it's time to do the install. So you always have to unpack everything first for inspection. So you need a staging area. You got to have space to receive deliveries, to put your materials, to set things aside. Where's the drywall going to go when it shows up? All these questions, you got to have answers before you start. Now in our house, we don't have a garage, so we've actually accommodated the entire living space next to the kitchen to turn it into our staging area. So we've got my toolboxes on wheels. I've got my temporary situation here, and that leads us to our third thing. Scope isolation. Scope isolation is really simple. That means once you start renovating a space, you don't want to do it like a road construction crew. You don't want to do the left side, the back side, the right side. You want to do the whole room at once. You want to do framing, electrical, plumbing. You want to close everything up. You want to do it all in stages, the entire room. You don't want to go, if you have 4 rooms on the main floor and you're renovating the whole main floor, renovate everything at the same time. Don't do one room at a time if it's at all possible. That'll dramatically decrease the amount of time and energy and money you waste, okay? So we're gonna go on a quick little tour. I'm gonna show you my plan and strategy for our kitchen renovation, and hopefully that'll help you. And then we're gonna show you how to set up a temporary kitchenette. Piece of cake, let's get started. So we've dealt with the staging area, we've got that all set up, right? So now we have 2 other issues left. We've got the storage and our scope isolation. For storage, we have an issue because my living room's taken up. I still have my front hall area, has a little bit of finishing work to do, but we want to get into this part of the renovation before the trim and final paint because we're expecting there to be maybe a little damage with all the materials coming back and forth. And we're concerned about the timeline because we're in a 4-season climate and winter is coming. Now, this is the deal. I've got sofas and tables and chairs, and I've got to get them somewhere where they're not going to be damaged. I've got 2 options. One is I could put them all in a corner, put up a plastic sheet, and that's what we're going to do today because it's raining outside and I don't want to be dragging my leather couches out to my storage pod that I had dropped off, which is just a portable outdoor box. I had them drop into my driveway here. We've got luxury of having that kind of space available, so I'm going to take advantage of it. That's all going in there as soon as the sunshine comes back. But for today, we're just going to put it behind a plastic wall, and we're going to show you how to do that in case that's your only option as well. The other thing we got to do, boxes. Buy a bunch of boxes. We're going to pack up everything in this kitchen and we're going to put it in boxes, and we don't want to overstuff anything so that we can stack them floor to ceiling and put them upstairs in the bedroom on one wall out of the way. We're going to just take out a frying pan, probably a couple of bowls and a couple of coffee mugs. Other than that, we're going to go all paper and plastic during the renovation. Whew. Now that should be easy, and then we're going to have to be able to have somewhere to clean our dishes. So that's what takes us to the next stage, setting up our temporary kitchen. Welcome to my new kitchen. Yes, I know, this is a bathroom, and it used to be a 3-piece, About a year or so after we moved in here, we actually had a flood in here because all the plumbing in this house is done wrong. We have no venting. It's the first time I ever moved to a house in my life that didn't have even one vent stack sticking out of the roof. So this has been just a nightmare. I just walled off the old tub shower area. It had to be all removed and demoed. And so I just kind of slapped together this into a two-piece. But for our purposes, it's awesome. We're going to open this wall back up again, remove the toilet, bust a huge hole in the wall over there, and create a new galley area here from upstairs. That gives me the ability to seal off the other room with plastic and duct tape and separate my work environment from my living environment. That's going to be key. So we'll remove the pedestal sink. We're going to put in a laundry tub and then a little pantry area, and that'll be enough for us to get through the next few weeks. Fingers crossed. Hopefully we'll still have a wife when I'm done. Now it's time to put up our plastic wall. Now this is a pretty simple system. If you've used it before, you know what I'm talking about, but I love zip wall. I've been using zip wall system for years and years and years, mostly for dust control. But you'll see a lot of guys in the business, you know, they'll be using zip wall or temporary plastic closures, and they'll be using it for asbestos removal and all that sort of thing. Truth is, you can use this concept just for dust control. And it's really nice to be able to establish where you're working and where you're not. Basically, all you do is you roll out your plastic the length of the wall that you need, cut it and stick it in place, and then tape it to the wall. Doesn't get much easier than that. Measure, plus a couple feet, done. When I'm using plastic as a dust barrier, I prefer to go with the medium grade plastic, and here's the reason why. I find it really easy to tape up. So I have this roll around all the time of medium plastic. This is not vapor barrier plastic, it's just medium plastic. And I'll take about a foot in, lay it over the pedal of the extension pole, and this just drops in like this. Slide the lock, and it's telescopic extension pole. And in the corner, twist and locked. There we go. So that's a spring-loaded connection here. And if you leave a couple of inches at the top, then when you come down here, you can lift the pole, pull your plastic underneath and stretch it out. And now it'll hold it nice and tight in the corner. And get that part up there as well. Beautiful. There we go. Now we've got what we call scope isolation. We're gonna make a mess over here, but everything in here will stay relatively clean. All we gotta do is stick a fan out the window, create a bit of a negative pressure, and my stuff is not gonna get dirty. Whew. Then tomorrow when the rain stops, I can pull this down. We'll run it all out to the pod, which is just a storage locker. I don't know if you got pods where you're from, but I'll guarantee you there's a company out there that'll drop off a temporary storage locker on your property, a couple $100 a month, and you're good to go. So for the sake of showing a few tips and helping people out, you know, sometimes not knowing how something is put together means you're gonna do something silly to rip it apart. Like, yeah. If I had $1 every time I saw somebody pull out a sledgehammer to do a demolition in the kitchen, I'd be a rich man. Now, here we go. Almost every Formica countertop in the world is installed with these screws. There's usually 2 to 4 screws in every cabinet. And here we go. Okay. We just take the 2 minutes it takes to unscrew them. You can lift it right off. Okay, so once you've undone the screws, just pick it up and carry it away. Now, because we're careful with this, I should be able to use a good section of this countertop as my temporary countertop in the other part. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna disengage this cabinet here, set it in position, and then measure and cut that cabinet countertop to fit. Nice and simple. Now in order to get these cabinets apart, we just have to undo the screws. I mean, this is just some MDF 1x2s that have been tacked on with a brad nailer. This isn't exactly cabinetry 101. It's a bit of a homemade jobby here. Just a few brad nails. That goes straight to the bin. There we go. There's my new kitchen cabinet for the bathroom. And so here's just a thought. First glance, this looks like, hey, that floor is nice. It's solid wood. It's salvageable. But look at the size of this gap here. Okay, that's from shrinkage over time. And this here, this is the last fill job. Somebody refinished this. When they put all this goop, it's just chipping out. Right? So all of this, that's what keeps coming up over and over and over again. Every time you walk, all that deflection in the floor when you're walking is causing these things to break up and little chunks popping out. And so then every couple of years, you're going to be left with this huge gap with nothing but dirt and debris and garbage. You're going to refinish the floor every 3 to 5 years just so you can fill your gaps up again? Not going to happen. So this is why we're covering it all up. We're going vinyl. Nothing I can do to save this floor. It's a shame. But if I keep sanding it, there won't be enough structural integrity left to hold me up from falling through. Now listen, for the purpose of putting it in the garbage, the best way to do it is remove the doors, right? And you want to basically set this up so it's nice and flat in the garbage bin. Okay? So everything you can do to make this flat, get rid of the back. Now you can take it out. That'll use up a lot less space. It's a lot easier to handle too. Right, so we're just gonna remove the sink, which is turning off the old shutoff valves. Wow, this is really on here nice and tight. I'm gonna cut away all the silicone, and I'm gonna salvage the plumbing. I have 1.5 inch pipe, I got a P-trap, I got shutoff valves. We can just re-engage the brand new laundry sink here. A couple of fittings, we'll have that done. So I'm gonna get Matt to rip this out, throw it in the garage, and then we'll get to installing the new kitchenette. Oh yeah, that's installed well, eh? Gotta love it when the drain just breaks off like that. Now in situations like this, just because you have the valve closed doesn't mean it's gonna work, especially with old ones. So we're gonna try taking this off. If it keeps on leaking, we'll have to turn off the water until we're done our install. Hit that side. Good. So we'll just take our laundry tub. Now these things always come with the legs. Okay, just tape to the bottom. Installation instructions and all this. So these are the leveling feet, the stopper, and this is a type of plumbing that you can use. We're going quick and simple today. So we're actually just going to thread this bad boy right on here. And this will be our drain plumbing now. Done. Let's get the legs in first before we lift it up in a position. So we can see that our sink is too high. The drain on this sink is actually further back towards the wall as well. So we're going to take our trusty little pipe cutter here. This will help keep everything from getting out of control messy, right? Little solvent. Redirect that line back towards where it is, and about 6 inches off the wall. And we're using two 45-degree angles just to move the pipeline into position. Before I set that last pipe in place, I think I'm going to attach my faucet. Sometimes attaching the faucet first is just a really good idea. Because this is a temporary kitchen, I went to the store and bought the cheapest faucet I could find. 30 bucks, I'm in business. Drill my new holes, mount a faucet, we're good to go. Taking special note here that they've marked the hot water supply intake with the little tab, and that they're going to be different lengths. So the longer one is going to be for hot water. A little bit of solvent on the pipe and inside the fitting, and we're going to lift and drop. There we go. Always go finger tight and use a wrench to just give it another quarter turn or so. There's a gasket in these, and so it seals up pretty nice. Remember when you're doing this sort of work that most kitchen faucets have got a shared valve system. So if you only connect the cold side first, and then you do a pressure test or a water test, it'll come out the hot water supply hose. So make sure everything's connected before you start doing any testing on your drain system. And we have a kitchen faucet. That's good for 6 to 8 weeks. Okay. So next step is to remove our toilet. We've already done this on camera multiple times, so we'll put a link in the description. If you don't know how to remove a toilet, you can watch it in another video. But we're gonna open up this wall, get out the Sawzall, cut our door, start removing some cabinets, and reinstall them in here for a temporary kitchen. Okay, so the plan is there's a bathroom behind here, and the old tub area is about there, right? But I need the width of my cabinet, 30, yeah, here. So I am going to be opening this up like a walkway, 30 inches wide. That'll work out. So I'll remove all of this. Yeah, and then inside I'll have my pantry and my other cabinet. Fabulous. Well, it's been one of those kind of days today. You know, Max's dog is injured. My son's going home with a virus. He's sick. Max is getting married in 48 hours. It's just the wrong day to try to film the rest of this video. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna open up the other side of the wall, and then when he come back from our wedding, we're gonna finish this video off with a tour of the finished product. You know, the funny thing is, I can't even remember the condition of the old tub space behind here. I don't know if it's all demoed or, man, I can't remember a damn thing. I think it's the insurance restoration company came in here. They did a cleanup because we had the toilet backup with a sewer backup, so it was nasty. So we had to put all new flooring. So I know they ripped out the tub, but I just can't remember. Oh, I hope there's not too much to do back here. Let's take a look. Bum, 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 bum. Ah, my old shower. Oh, and my tub. Okay. Yeah, so I've got to finish ripping all of this out before I can open up my hallway. All right. That's for Matthew. I'm heading off to Max's wedding with him, and I'm going to leave my son here to finish the rest of this demolition. When we come back, which is in just a few seconds from now, we'll show you all of the finished product and we'll do a tour. But the plan is to put a 30-inch cabinet with a countertop here and that floor-to-ceiling pantry cabinet on this wall right here, so that we can have enough dry goods storage and counter space and a sink to be able to function around here for the next few weeks. Anyway, let's just do this and we'll see you in a second. So now that you've seen all my organization secrets, we're gonna take you back into the kitchen and show you the finished project, because to me it's a little bit fun. I know my wife's really enjoying it. It's kind of like a little European apartment kitchen, but it works. So let's go take a look. Ta-da! Not so glamorous, I know, but man, is it functional. Listen, this is separated from the construction zone by a door. I got a huge sink. I've got my coffee machine. I got a microwave. I even bought one of those little hot plates I can plug in. Just gotta be careful. Usually when you do a temporary kitchen, the electrical's not set up, so I can't run my microwave and the hot plate at the same time. Blows the breaker. Not a problem. We got some storage. I got my fridge. I got my dog food set up and my garbage cans. Everything I need right here in this cute little 30 to 40 square foot area. This is reason that we are not going insane, because we can cook and we can keep our area clean. Doing 6 months without a kitchen will drive you crazy. I've done it before. For whatever reason, you just wake up in the morning angry, and you don't want to live like that. So if you're going to do a major renovation, consider finding a place in your house that you can make a temporary kitchen, do the kitchen renovation, and then come back into this space later. This is just changing some flooring and remodeling. You can remodel a space after you've had a temporary kitchen, and easy enough. That is my secret to success. All right, so now that I've exposed all of my secrets and tips and tricks for you, you have a better understanding of what it is that's possible. Let me ask you a simple question. How old is the home that you're thinking about renovating? What are the challenges that you have? And yes, put your questions in the comment section, because I'm one of the few YouTubers around here who actually answers your questions. I don't know, I must be doing this for about an hour and a half every morning and a couple hours before I go to bed every night, but I'm feeling like it's really important. So this video in particular, forget all my rules. I usually tell people, ask your questions in the newest video. In this video, I'm going to be answering all your questions for a long time. So if you're just watching this now and you haven't seen this channel before, ask your questions. We're here to help, all right? Don't forget to give us a thumbs up button. Let us know if you like this kind of information, if it's helpful, and subscribe to the channel. Hit the button in the bottom of the corner. If I don't tell you, you're not going to do it, and then you're going to miss out on all the videos that are coming up about the rest of this kitchen renovation, and you don't want to do that, because we're going to share with you secrets of where to go shopping, how to save your money, how to do all these projects yourself, and we're going to turn your house into an absolute paradise that you can afford. That's the secret, right? We want to be realistic with these projects on this channel, things that people can actually afford to do. Wow, we're all in a different place in life, but if we all work together and strive together, we can all make our place better. So now we have to ask the big question. Is renovating your house in your future? Is it something you can see yourself doing? Either as a DIYer or just hiring someone out to do all the job for you. I just want you to put an answer in the comment section. Just click on yes or no if you're going to be a renovator. That's all we want to know. And if you have questions, throw them in there. Thanks a lot for joining us. I know that was a mouthful today. Hopefully the information was helpful. And if you're excited to see how this project is going to turn out, then I'm going to encourage you to just click this right here. And we've got videos that are relating to the whole renovation of this house, outside and inside, and you can follow us along on our journey.